I'm Linda Drake, Director of Career and College Readiness Initiatives at the State Board of Education. This presentation is on graduation requirements and the Washington High School Diploma. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the system of education in our state that leads to a high school diploma as a resource to State Board of Education members, educators, and members of the public. The current system of graduation requirements is the starting point for work developing recommendations for alignment of the education system called for in recent legislation. The Washington State Mastery-Based Work Group is in the process of developing a state profile of the graduate, and there's ongoing research on graduation pathway options. The legislature has directed the State Board of Education to make recommendations to align graduation requirements with the profile of the graduate and to make recommendations concerning the graduation pathway options requirement. Here is a timeline that shows the 2021 report on graduation pathway research was recently completed in August 2021. The Mastery-Based Learning Work Group will submit their profile of a graduate and related recommendations to the governor and the committees of the legislature in December. In December 2022, the State Board of Education will submit reports with recommendations on graduation pathways and on alignment of the system of graduation requirements as a whole. So a major project of the State Board of Education for 2022 is developing recommendations for the alignment of the education system leading to a high school diploma. In this presentation, I'll provide an introduction and background on current graduation requirements, including the statutory basis for the diploma. I will review each of the main elements of the graduation requirements. I will briefly describe some of the interactions of higher education with graduation requirements and other statutory K-12 requirements and recommended K-12 education. Finally, I will end with some key questions that may help you start thinking about our system of graduation requirements. One of the statutory foundations of K-12 education in Washington are the goals of basic education listed in statute. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read them, but I would encourage anyone to read them because they are important. In summary, Goal 1 is about effective communication. Goal 2 is subject area knowledge. Goal 3 is about thinking analytically and creatively and using technology and problem solving. Goal 4 is about work, finance, and decision-making for the student's personal future. The goals of basic education are reflected in graduation requirements. Another educational foundation in statute is the purpose of the high school diploma, shown at the bottom of this slide, which is to declare a student is ready for success in post-secondary education, gainful employment, and citizenship, and is equipped with the skills to be a lifelong learner. This slide also shows the 3 elements of graduation requirements for the Washington High School Diploma: the High School and Beyond Plan, credit and subject area requirements, and graduation pathway options. The High School and Beyond Plan guides a student's high school experience and is a process through which educators can help students imagine their futures and learn how to make those futures a reality. The High School and Beyond Plan is a good place for students to learn and practice the knowledge and skills of Goal 4 of basic education. Credit and subject area requirements are intended to create high expectations for all students and give all students a chance to achieve personal and academic success. What students should know and be able to do is articulated in Washington State's learning standards. Ideally, the courses students take in high school should advance their learning towards several of the goals of basic education. Graduation pathway options are a demonstration of preparation to meet students' goals for after high school. Successful completion of a graduation pathway should be assigned to the student, to educators, to families, and to prospective employers that the student is on track for the future the student envisions in their high school and beyond plan. I think it most closely ties with the purpose of the high school diploma as an indicator of readiness for success in post-secondary education or gainful employment. The current high school graduation requirements evolved over about the past 20 years or so. The high school and beyond plan has been a graduation requirement since the class of 2008. Initially, for a number of years, the only requirements were for a high school course taking plan and a plan for the first year after high school. There have been significant additions to it over the past 5 legislative sessions. Credit and subject area graduation requirements were largely constant for decades. And then the 24 credit requirement started to be phased in with an additional math credit added to the class of 2013, math and social studies added to the class of 2016, and science and a total of 24 credits added with the class of 2019. The actual phase-in was a little more spread out because districts could opt to delay implementation for up to 2 years. But with the class of 2021, all districts should now be implementing the same state graduation requirements. Graduation pathway options are the most recent element to be established. They were implemented for the class of 2020 and replaced a system of high school exit exams that existed for about a decade previously. Implementation of the graduation pathway options was quite disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Authority over different parts of Washington's K-12 education system is distributed between the state and local districts and schools. Decisions about instruction take place locally, while learning standards are adopted by the Superintendent of Public Instruction in consultation with the State Board of Education. If state learning standards are not present, districts may establish their own learning standards. Decisions on curricula are made locally. An exception to this is the state's since time immemorial curriculum, which is a state required curriculum. High school credit is defined quite broadly in state law as related to high school courses or its equivalent. What is equivalent may be identified locally, which gives local districts quite a lot of authority over things like mastery-based credits. Districts have the authority to identify which courses meet which graduation requirements, or if a course meets more than one graduation requirement. State graduation requirements are established by the legislature and the State Board of Education. Districts may set local requirements in addition to the state requirements. Districts locally determine when students have met graduation requirements and are the institutions, along with approved private high schools and community and technical college high school programs, that actually award Washington high school diplomas. Here are some of the required elements and processes of the high school and beyond plan. I'm not going to read them all. Most of these were implemented by the legislature over the last 5 years. The high school and beyond plan is intended to make education individualized for each student and to help students guide their own education and to connect what they learn in high school to what they do after high school. But there appears to be a wide range in how the plan is being implemented. The State Board of Education collects some data about the high school and beyond plan in the annual basic education survey. 60% of districts start the plan with 8th graders. The law required that the 2020 to 21 school year, that in that year, districts had to make an online platform available for the high school and beyond plan. The low or no cost WSIPSI plan is the most commonly used online tool. WSIPSI is the technical data consortium that many Washington school districts use and is the provider of the Skywords information system. 6% of schools implement the high school and beyond plan through a standalone 4-credit course. 22% embed the high school and beyond plan in 4 credit courses or offer credit for an advisory course. 68% of districts do not award credit for the high school and beyond plan. There is a lot of variability in how the high school and beyond plan is implemented. There are parents who say they have never heard of their students' high school and beyond plan. We have heard from students who say that their plan was a checklist in their senior year. And I've even heard an educator tell me to please get rid of it. But some districts, schools, and individual counselors and career center coordinators are really doing amazing things with the high school and beyond plan. I think more information about how the high school and beyond plan is being implemented may be useful for the work of better aligning graduation requirements. This is a visual of the credit and subject area requirements for Washington. The credits in yellow are the 17 core credits or foundational credits. The credits in blue are the flexible credits, including electives and personalized pathway requirements. The personalized pathway requirements are 3 credits the student chooses that must align with the student's high school and beyond plan. The goals of basic education are addressed in these subject area requirements. Goal 1 would be addressed across the requirements, but particularly in the 4 credits of English. Goal 2 is addressed in all the core credits as well as electives. Goal 3 would be addressed again across the subjects, but perhaps in particular in the sciences, math, and career and technical education. Goal 4, again, might be addressed in many subjects, but in particular, understanding of the importance of work would be addressed in career and technical education. There are state learning standards for each of the core subject areas and program standards for career and technical education. In some of the required subject areas, there are also required courses. This is an added layer of complexity and specificity. This is true of social studies and math. And 2 of the 3 sciences must be laboratory sciences. There are learning standards in computer science, and computer science may substitute for a 3rd credit of math or a 3rd credit of lab science. A 2-credit waiver is part of the 24 credit requirement framework, allowing individual students to have 2 credits waived locally so they can graduate with 22 rather than 24 credits. Under certain circumstances, the Washington State history requirement, which is usually offered in middle school, may be waived. Students may be excused from physical education, but must meet the credit requirements by earning equivalent or mastery-based credit. Career and technical education equivalencies are CTE courses that have enough content of another graduation requirement subject area that the student may meet that graduation requirement. For example, they could meet a geometry math requirement by taking a carpentry course. Mastery-based learning allows for a great deal of flexibility in meeting graduation requirements. Credits might be awarded for non-traditional, non-classroom-based learning experiences, such as internships or through interdisciplinary learning experiences. Mastery-based learning also allows for learning at a rate individualized for the student. Yet graduation pathway options can be categorized into the 8 shown here. The top 5 are course and testing options that focus on English and math content, knowledge, and skills. The combination option indicates that these can be used in combination. A student can meet their math requirement through a transition course and their English requirement through a state assessment. ASVAB and the career and technical course sequence are the only 2 pathways that combine the English and math requirements into one option. The legislation that directed that graduation pathway options be established also directed the State Board of Education to study the pathways and make recommendations for changes to existing pathways and for additional pathways if needed. The board was also directed to make recommendations on removing barriers to district implementation of pathways and to equitable access to all pathways by all students. The second year report by the State Board of Education's contractor, who has conducted surveys and focus groups of educators, students, and families, has just been completed. While there is recognition that graduation pathways have the potential to be meaningful and valuable, there are significant barriers to the districts in implementing pathways, and there is not equitable access to all pathways by all students. Survey participants, particularly students, wanted pathways that diverged from math and English. Students and parents wanted more life and employability skills in general in high school, and this was regardless of whether the student's plan was to go to college or to a career directly after high school. Districts found implementing CTE pathway options and bridge to college transition courses most challenging to implement. And these are also the most accessible courses for some students. Some districts still offer very few pathways. Some still offer only the state assessment. For students in these districts, the state assessments are still high stakes exit exams. The report cites students being guided into pathways that are not aligned to their high school and beyond plan, particularly students receiving special education services. If we want pathways and high school and beyond plan to be meaningful, we have to have options that are meaningful for students. There are a number of dual credit programs available to students. Each program has its own policies and operates differently. There's good information about each of these programs in partner websites. High school credit is not defined by time, but there is a specific number of high school credits that students earn as it relates to college credits. And generally, students may earn credits faster and progress towards graduation faster by taking dual credit courses. CADRs, or college academic distribution requirements, are a consideration for high school counselors, particularly to help guide students who want to go to a four-year college or university after high school. This shows the relationship between CADRs and the subject area graduation requirements. Another consideration is college athletics. Most schools and districts want to make sure their high school programs allow their students to attend college after high school and participate in college athletics. The National College Athletics Association approves high school courses to be used by students for eligibility to participate in college athletics. The Bridge to College courses have generally not been approved by the NCAA. There are several other educational requirements or recommended or encouraged education that are in statute, but are sometimes not explicitly in the graduation requirements. When it comes to any future graduation requirement alignment work, these must be considered. Some of them are learning standards, but they are learning standards that do not have a clear-cut home within the credit and subject area requirements. In that case, it is incumbent upon districts to embed them in other subject areas, and if they choose, offer the content in dedicated classes that may be elective or local graduation requirements. I want to close with some key questions that may help workgroup members, board members, and partners start thinking about developing recommendations that will improve our system of graduation requirements. I hope this presentation provides a useful foundation for understanding the current system that helps inform the profile of a graduate work and the recommendations to align the system that will be developed in 2022. Our system is currently quite complex. Educators have to help guide students through it, and students have to navigate it. Sometimes flexibility was added to address inequities, but it was done at the expense of making the system more complex. Can we simplify the system while enhancing equity as well as the quality of education? How can we make the high school and beyond plan more meaningful and useful? Can we make it more uniform and useful for all students? How do we document learning and progress towards meeting graduation requirements? The traditional unit has been a credit, and traditionally credit has been related to time. When we remove time, how do we track student mastery of learning standards? What graduation pathway options could be developed to align with all students' high school and beyond plans and be accessible by all students? Not only the graduation pathway option research, but in practically every conversation the board has had with students, there's been a call for more financial education and work skills in high schools. So how can we address those? Thank you for listening to this presentation. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.